interestingly, a good power-packed speakers on dais talking about moving pharma beyond the pandemic and what did we learn in the last 20 months? Is that 20 months that we've been locked up, or is it more than that? And how are we making the pharma supply chain more resilient for the future? That's the topic of the discussion. And really happy to have such distinguished panel members, speakers representing pharmaceutical companies, speakers representing supply chain logistics. You have a cargo handler, you have an integrator, we have an airport, not one airport, we have a European airport, Frankfurt, and we have the Mumbai International Airport, and we have Skyways, Yash from Skyways, another important freight forwarder. All of us talking about the pharmaceutical logistics. I wouldn't like to take too much of time, because when I have such a distinguished panel of speakers, I should straight get into the questions and allow them to speak. And like I always keep saying in all our conferences, please do come in at any time if you want to raise a question, to make a point. Please feel free to come in, and we will have a round of audience interaction at the end of. I intend to have about like 2 or 3 questions round with the panel, and then we open up to the audience for the questions. Let me start with looking at what happened in the last 20 months. And the question is, did the pandemic expose the weakness in the global supply chain or global pharmaceutical supply chain? To be specific, are we better prepared for the future now? Are we better prepared for the resilient supply chain in the pharmaceutical logistic supply chain? Let me get Ravi into the discussion, and then we follow up with the other logistics stakeholders to offer their comments. Ravi.
Thank you, Rajiv, for this wonderful session. Welcome everyone for this offline event. In fact, nowadays when we say offline, it looks very weird because we all got used to online. And more so, I feel very privileged to be invited first on the dais, because within the manufacturing industry, logistics comes last. So all the bad news, all the delays, everything gets accumulated onto the fag end of the activity, which is logistics, and we have pushed onto the wall that you need to get it delivered. Okay, delivered, fine, but cost, at what cost? So I think these were the regular challenges what we used to have before the pandemic. And once the pandemic hit us, we all know how difficult was it. All the flights were cancelled, all the trucks were stopped, we had lockdowns. Then obviously it called us for relooking into our supply chains, the ways of working completely, right from grassroots. And we had to go back to the drawing tables, bring all our people together to have brainstorming sessions. Particularly, I came up with 4 C's, which is collaboration, communication, which was very important. It's not only with the internal stakeholders, but even for the external stakeholders also. I think I would not say that we have to change the ways of working, but basically we have to accelerate, or we need to relook at how we can collaborate with our internal and external stakeholders much better, having visibility and transparency to our processes, so that the communication goes seamlessly to the rest of the channel partners also in the whole supply chain. So I think after being into this situation for the last 1.5 years or 20 months, let's say, we have got used to it. And now we have started challenging every particular step, every particular activity in the organization, and say that why can't we do it differently? So in terms of processes, yes, we started challenging what is fit for purpose. It is not that someone has asked us to move the shipment X way, which we used to do it blindly, of course. But now we started challenging why we should move it that way, whether it is ocean freight, air freight, active shipments. And then, people are seriously looking into it now, unlike in the past, that yes, service is important, movement of the products is important, but what is fit for purpose? It does not mean that, you need to drop your kids to school and then you always need to have a Mercedes. Even if you drive a Ford or a Maruti, it's still okay, but you're delivering the service what is needed. So that's how the organizations have started thinking, and particularly with the collaborations what we have with the service providers, with the airport authorities. In fact, before the pandemic, probably there were very few opportunities where we might have talked to the airport authorities like Manoj, and now it has become a daily affair. So this is something which we see is groundbreaking, shattered all the barriers in between. And then I'm sure and I'm hopeful that this will go beyond what we are doing right now in terms of have much more visibility and transparency of our processes.
Mr. Jani, again, how would you like to recall the last 20 months? It's been quite a challenging period, but now all of us have a smile on our face. I think most of us are vaccinated. What is the biggest learning, and how are you looking at the past 20 months?
First of all, I'm filling the space for my general, who is Pramod, who's not here, and he's the one who fought the war. I was just clapping behind, so I must, put that on record. It is Pramod and his team who had done fantastic work, whatever it is. But I think the one biggest thing what I learned, and which Ravi said it very rightly, we are ready to challenge ourselves and ready to look at it. Can we do it? Can we improve? Can we do it better? We also realize that time is an essence, much more in a productive way. And third, like what Ravi said was, we know better. Earlier, shipper was staying some 30 buildings away. We never saw him. Now we are real neighbor. So he goes to the same grocery shop as I go. Right? So I know what grocery is bought in today. So we are now, tracking what Ravi is going to do for his next few months or his shipments or what are they going to come. I think the biggest challenge what we have in the last 20 months, which continues to be, is the flight movement. Earlier we had this passenger flights. So every day there was a movement. Now suddenly every 4 days, I've got 400 tons of cargo coming in to process, right? And I said, that's a challenge which we all are facing, but we are getting used to it. But I wish we could do our supply chain a little better. It brings burden on him. When you ship 400 tons every 4 days, it brings burden on us. And as a country, as an industry, we need to plan this in a better. But I think so in last 20 months, the one good thing we all have learned is empathy. If I call up Ravi and I said, Pramod is not well, I have a difficulty, he's ready to accommodate that okay, he could be down with some, I think that's the biggest thing what we've learned. The humanity has come back. It's not just a business, right? We have to achieve the result. So I think we should encourage this business of empathy. I mean, I cannot ask Ravi more empathize with me than before. So we all need to catch, and he also understands that I'm more empathized with him now. So I think on this whole web of empathy which we have created, ready to help, ready to support, ready to go out of the way, ready to innovate, ready to do something different. In time, we should, encash that further.
One of the many reasons why we have sessions and conferences is to make sure that we collaborate and we communicate. And as Ravi said, also place in context that logistics is not in the last in the chain, but bring it on the table right on top as a top priority. And I think to some extent that is happening. Mrityunjay, I remember, I think it is the second week, 13th of December, that's when the US government allowed the vaccine movement, and we saw the FedEx planes carrying the first set of Pfizer BioNTech and then followed by Moderna. When you look back, what are some of the biggest learnings? What do you recall as significant landmark moments for you as well as for FedEx?
So I would give this answer in two parts. One is to start with, what did we actually do during the initial phase of the pandemic, and then what did we learn from that, and how did we use those learnings as we continue to move ahead. So one of the important aspect or start of the pandemic was that we continued to operate. We did not even stop our operations for a single day. And that ensured that the commerce and the critical aids continued to move in the network. That was one most important thing. We also were in forefront of fighting this pandemic. We actually donated 3 charter flights with aid relief materials into India, which helps the country to fight or supported the country to fight this pandemic. Coming to the vaccine movement that you just touched upon, it is actually one of the most important work in the history of FedEx. That is what we consider that. We worked very closely with industry bodies, government, regulatory agencies to ensure smooth movement of these vaccine shipments. And while moving these, we realized that flexibility is one of the most key important element of when you are moving during such pandemic. FedEx in India currently operate of 3 gateways, which is Delhi, Bombay, and Bangalore. And we have 22 international flights per week that allows customers the reach and access to both move shipment out of the country and even get critical shipment into the country, because you need even the materials to manufacture. So you need both inward and outward access. So our network actually allows the customers the desired flexibility. Second important learning we all spoke in the morning is about the safety aspect. So FedEx believes, or we live by the motto safety for all. So while we continued our operation, we never compromised on the safety aspect, both of our employees, our customers, the packages that we move for our customers, because that needs to be safely delivered. And you pick up a package and if you're not able to deliver safely, it is of no use. So we ensured that, and even for the community that we work on. So these were some of the key learning for us.
Roland, first of all, happy to have you here for the first time for Pharma event. When you look at in the last 20 months, what happened, and I know that you've been spending about 16 to 18 hours in the Frankfurt airport, a lot of activities there. What are some of the biggest learnings and biggest lessons that you've been picking up?
Yeah, thanks, Reggie. Yeah, it was Air Cargo India was the last conference I attended in February 2 years ago, and this is the first one again. So it's India on both ends for me. So so when you look at Frankfurt, I don't want to look at Frankfurt just as Frankfurt. We are 50% of our cargo is connecting. So the aim is to connect the world and to connect India. That's why we are here, and this is what we are looking at. We have connectivity via non-stop services from the Indian carriers as well as from the German carriers, but all the connect carriers that we see, whether those are the Gulf carriers or whether this is even carriers like in Bangkok. So everything that is on the way, they're using us. And the biggest learning that we had, it was not reinventing the wheel, but it was our air cargo community. The air cargo community from day one was sitting together, leaving aside all the competitive issues just to get the operations running. So the warehouse companies, the shippers, the forwarders, carriers, even like a FedEx, they're operating a small hub in Frankfurt. This is self-handling. So they are having their own setup, which is kind of a closed shop. But also they are connecting to mainline carriers. But the trucking, Europe-wide trucking, was the other challenge, and all the stakeholders were talking, all the service providers, the Chellebies, the Swissports, the FCSs, the CHIs, all of them, and all the big consolidation hubs of the airlines. And everybody was moving cargo. We had lost all the passenger flights, like you said, Tusha, but we were able to maintain an average of 85 main deck freighters per day globally. And some of that capacity went in and out of India. We lost all the passengers. 40% of our cargo volumes during normal operating days is belly space of scheduled carriers. And pharmaceuticals with cool containers and all that has the tendency to move on lower deck with high frequencies, high schedules, reliability, so to say. And those were all gone overnight. And then it restarted. We were able to reallocate the manpower resources from the passenger side into the cargo side. And we had no dip. So at no point in time we were losing capacity and volume throughput. And the warehouse handlers added cool cells, added cool facilities, RAM transfer processes were improved. And of course, speed is of essence. If you're connecting, you want to make sure that there is no temperature excursions while it's on the ground. And everybody knows it's a critical portion, leaving the aircraft, going on the ramp, going to a handler, or going back to the next aircraft. So everybody was working together to do that, and successfully so. So actually, the last 2 years were the cargo-wise the best 2 years in the history of Frankfurt Airport. So that came as a surprise, but also it's a picture, and we've gone through that during global downturns, whether this was Gulf War #1, Gulf War #2, whether this was SARS, or whether this was the ash cloud in Northern Europe. Carriers go back to the consolidation hubs and go away from decentralized flying, going into the big hubs. And that must work like a clockwork. We're trying to digitize a lot. We're trying to get what the integrators, DHLs, the FedExes, everybody that we have, also UPS also operates. Sometimes digitization and the way cargo is shipped, I keep saying that it's kind of like natural enemies, because it's so many stakeholders in the supply chain that are not linked together, different accounting systems, different softwares. So we were able to connect most of that. Customs was willing, authorities were willing to, we didn't have to adhere to the night flight ban. So even the people in the area around the airport were kind of saying, okay, now we wake up at night, but that plane that flies carries some PPE equipment or carries some medicals on there. So that was, well, it went well. Learning, you can always be better. You can always enhance the way you do. So hopefully nothing like that will happen again. But so we have to set up there, and collaboration was the key. And the cargo community was working hand in hand to get this done.
Manoj, you still have sleepless nights?
Yes, to begin with, the impact of COVID, or I would say the 21st March was, everyone knows this date actually. And for me and my team and as an airport, the first important aspect was that, you know, around Mumbai airport, we have almost 4,000 people commuting every day to our facility. And now the people were the epicenter. If people were not safe and sound and secure, the whole objective of supply chain would have been defeated. So the first act was how to create a safe environment. And with our stakeholders, we were successful to start. We anticipated this lockdown is going to come, but we were interacting with the ministry, and we knew that coming last week of March, there will be a lockdown. Before that, what aspects of safety concerns we need to really implement that. So 13th of March, I know the date specific, that we made a mandate to every person coming to our facility at the security main gate, mandatory hand wash, temperature check. And if there is any symptoms, we do not allow. So we had, before that, we had engaged our stakeholders together. We had many workshops. I think we had engaged with the regulatory authorities, because getting customs and other regulators to do a temperature check was also a challenge, because they feel that, you know, why everyone should be going down and do the temperature check and a mandatory hand wash. But everyone cooperated. I think I would say the success story started off with the people commuting actually. So if that was not being taken care of, everyone together, hats off to everyone. I mean, be a custom broker, freight forwarders, ground handlers, service providers, cargo handlers, our own entire team of MEAL, and our handling contractors. You know, the whole issue was lockdown means stay at home. So I still remember it came across to me as well. If there is a lockdown, why you should go? So I'm the epicenter for driving. The only thing which is going to drive at the airport is cargo. If I'm not there, the team of core team is not there of my stakeholders, I would not be able to deliver that. And that becomes a very, very critical point for our decision making. So I remember the whole airport got blocked, and all the HODs of my peer groups, we had a multi meetings, but cargo was the only one, you know, everyone were looking at us that, you know, you're going to drive, at least, you know, the freighters are going to come. And, you know, P2F was like, you know, after 10 days, the challenge of P2F started off. Earlier, the capacity is slowly shrink, you know, and
April, we had an impact, just to share with you all. I think all over India, April, the volume had been impacted, but May, slowly, the anxiety, fear, and confidence of people, stakeholders, we played a major role to drive that, actually. If that was not, it would have been disaster for all of us. And then again, we had not only on the outbound a challenge, but incoming cargo, we had a press release. In fact, there was a lot of media and media attention that, airport is closed, but cargo is opened. And, I had to really be a vocal point that, we are here to really serve. And we had got a lot of resistance from some vested interest people who wanted to stop the cargo operations also, all across in India rather. So, but we kept our heads up. And due to that, the anxiety, fear to confidence, and we lost few lives, we learned lessons, but the collaborative effort of every stakeholders, it starts from the top. If that is taken care of, I think everyone comes. They see a confidence, and I personally have not taken a single leave. Just on a month in the last December, I had taken a break, but every day had come, every day, excluding Sunday, and that was the whole confidence level goes to everyone players. If the lead is there, the person who is there on the top, if he's coming, then why not? We should be there. So it was like a mental break of people to confidence. That boss is coming. Let's support boss. So it was. We had really made an SOP, and we also worked with the airlines also and our service provider that you have to have a limited people in their office environment. So we used to do the audits and checks. We had every 15 days a core team, not from my department but from my other department. There was a core team which used to do a safety audits, and that really made points of concerns, and that was acted. So to make your environment was the most important, and that was a good lesson to learn, because nobody knew what needs to be done. And earlier, if you all remember, the phase one was that is a contamination. It was not people to people. From the day one, it was people to people, the contaminations. So had it not been the fear factor of, in the beginning itself, if we all got to know about it, we would have collapsed. So the phase two, when it happened, there was a lot of good things happened in terms of acceptance that, okay, we have to take safety environment to our people. And that's where the confidence built. Had it been the second wave, which came as a disaster for all of us, we lost many lives. I think in customs, almost all across India, they lost 240 officers. So in Mumbai airport, we have lost almost around 7-8 people. In CSC also, almost all youngsters in the second wave moved. Yes, but still our confidence was there. And for us, the 2 months of when we lost our good key officers also, our morale went down. But again, we have to rebuild again. So that's the journey, because we will talk about collaboration, IT integrations, businesses, but people were the most important thing, which I think is an asset and always going to be, because people drive the business. And if people are not there, we have airline guys, be it or the airport or the service provider, many guys, they have, digitally they interact with the team, but the shop floor guys who have taken the thrive on their head. And this transformed sector, airline, be it airport, everyone has to take a decisions on their operational cost, but also the safety, as rightly mentioned by Roy. Safety of people is important. The third wave is going to come, or fourth wave is going to come. How well we are geared up. I think we need to be pre-active, proactive on all actions of ours. I think it has given a good lesson to us. I remember, just to cut short, we had so much of deep interaction with the ministry and the government and the other embassies. We had one, not to name, but yes, there was an aircraft which came, a mini aircraft. There are 40 boxes of vaccines were supposed to go, but the packaging was a different size, and the aircraft door was a limited size. And I was in the barber shop on Sunday. I was, in the barber shop, and the ministry is calling me. This cargo cannot go, vaccine cannot go, and the aircraft has come. It has to go to Saudi Arabia, from there to Turkey, and then from there it is supposed to go to a particular country. And you should not name that. But this should not go. You please offload it. Now, a friction of minutes, the goods are there at the tarmac, and the decision on the ministry is there, stop it. We cannot load it because vaccine is going to get deteriorated. So imagine from there, I had to really move out from the barber shop, and for 2 hours, we could interact, get these guys, the ministry guys, as well as the ops teams and the ground handlers. Repackaging was done. Repackaging was done on the tarmac, and it was loaded, but it took 6 hours of delay, but it moved. So that kind of focused area, I mean, I've got 100 experiences, I would say, in this 2 years down the line, where every element of the supply chain was monitored by everyone, and everyone was passionate about it. It was not by force, it was by passion that this vaccine needs to go, this pharma has to go. And this is the industry where, I would say, hats off to everyone. This was growing 24/7, and this was moving 24/7. To create that, we had to really be, a good safety environment we had to create. So that's where the good experience and then, learning, and that I think we can go to the next level. Wave 3, wave 4 comes, or any other virus comes, and God forbid it should not be. But I think we have learned a lot, and we can do much better than what we're doing today.
Yes, how tough was operating last 20 months where your demand was high, capacity was constrained? How did you manage, and what was some of your biggest learnings from the last 20 months?
Yeah, I mean, last 20 months have been very interesting and exciting months for everybody, I guess. The biggest learning that I feel most organizations would have probably had is how to create their business continuity plans. I mean, everybody does it. For years, we've been creating business continuity plans, but we all, when those moments come of some possible disruptions, is when we realize that, they were never enough. And pandemic was one such period of life when all business continuity plans kind of fell short of what they should have been. And that's where I think organizations need to spend more time, and that's what we did. And I'm sure each one of us, all organizations would have done that, making sure that you do a lot of detailing of the business continuity plans. We heard Mr. Jani speak this morning of, research, manufacturing, supply chains. And so the research part is something which is very, very hugely neglected. And business continuity is kind of part of that research activity, that you need to constantly look at your infrastructure, your equipments, your processes, your people, that, are they compliant in terms of when something comes in as a disruption, can they really be there? So for me, I think the biggest learning was to spend good quality time in trying to make sure that, we spend absolutely going down to a micro level in each of these aspects to create a business continuity plan, which makes sure that you don't come to a halt even for a second. Logistics, unlike many industries who could say that, we locked down or we are home, logistics could not. I mean, we heard everybody here say that, they had no time to fear. We had to be right in the front. We had to be there. We had to be there in person. We had to be digitally connected. We had to be everything. So there was no way that logistics could have stayed back home. We had to be there. So we had no option. And so it was a lot about retuning, re-energizing that we constantly did. It was retuning of your infrastructure, your equipments, your collaborations, your partnerships. It was a lot of re-energizing of your people, because from fear to execution, there's a journey that you need to encompass. You can't, bring somebody who's very scared being inside their doors to get them to work and deliver for the customer. But I think it was a great journey of trying to learn from a lot of things that were happening all around us. And it was quite an incredible period. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this period because there was a lot of, I feel many organizations would have done that. There was a lot of trimming as well as a lot of extrapolation of what we had. And we are now, I think, more geared up for a better tomorrow in terms of business executions than probably we were in 2019.
When it just started, and I'm sure the prominent coal trucker are here, the trucks were coming, drivers were beaten up by the police. And the drivers had to hide, leave the truck behind. The trains were stopped, we had to get people as far off 60, 65 kilometers. Would bring them by bus. Bus is not allowed. Right? We had to go with police. People who came on their own vehicle, police were beating them up because police had to rightfully tell people not to get out of the house. So they were not differentiating between who is essential, who is not essential. I think from there, all slowly what we built, cargo complex was like one family house. The foods were cooked, they were staying there, they were being bathed there, the clothes were being washed there, and it was really kind of an integrated place where you can get everything. without not having anything. So I think so initial period, really we went for tough time. And, Mumbai's backbone is local train. And it just got operated about a few months before. So people will still be coming far off from Vasai, Nalasopara, Palgar, So I think so credit to that people who made that efforts to come, taking bus, then another bus, then another bus. So I think that was a great physical,
Yes, people and empathy, I think that's really important. I think they played an important role. Ravi, you wanted to add something?
Raji, sorry interrupting your flow, but I couldn't stop here. When we were talking about contingency plans with organizations, go back 18 months or 20 months back, and if you look at where we were, I remember the day when we went to CSE for the inauguration of the facility, where we had the customs officers, the airlines, everyone standing there. And today, when I go back to that situation and think about it, probably did we anticipate this COVID situation well in advance? Probably we never knew that this is going to come up, but there is something called an intuition. Probably Tushar, Jani, Manoj, all of you have put in so much efforts in bringing in this CSE facility. One, the CSE facility where you created this storage space for, I think, 7 Boeings, what I heard, 7 or 8 Boeings of capacity, which is available, which was not there in the past. This was ready to use on the day one for all the import cargo and export cargo. Though the roads were blocked, the trucks were not there, the manufacturing facilities were shut down, but there was the space available where you could store your cargo safely. That was one. Second, that was the same time, I think a couple of days here and there, that was the same time you even brought in the facility of the cool dollies,
yes,
which was the first in the country again. So I think when you go back to these situations and then think, probably we have anticipated this somehow, God's grace or sixth sense, whatever you call it, but this was coming. And that was the same time, even the core group of pharma supply chain managers were created. I was part of that core group, fortunately, and Ryan is here. Ryan was leading the interactions with the shippers. We had a couple of face-to-face meetings in the CSE office where we were brainstorming. There was no particular challenge that time that we have to do something today, but we were all brainstorming that how can we improve this? How can we take it to the next level? And we had a couple of interactions face-to-face, and after that, the pandemic stuck. So these incidents, one after the other, if you look at it today, it's God gifted that we already started putting these plans in place. And then when actually the lockdown happened, probably it gave us that momentum to take it forward digitally, on the phones, on the calls, webinars, where we were better equipped to handle this situation. I really congratulate Mr. Tushar and Manoj and Ryan, of course, for bringing this community together and putting this effort, which helped for us, all the shippers, to work closely and then get these medicines to the respective customers, markets, wherever we call it, with a lesser impact.
Did the pandemic really expose the weakness in the supply chain? I don't know how many of you agree to the fact that did it expose the weakness, and are we better prepared now? And a few days back, I had a discussion with Roland, and one of the things that we discussed was that is there an end of the pandemic? Even though I have titled this as moving beyond the pandemic, is there a beyond the pandemic? I think in March 2020, April 2020, probably we expected that pandemic. There is a pre-COVID and a post-COVID. Now it seems that we've been there 20 months. There seems to be a kind of a continuation of a reality that we getting used to it. So anyone on the panel, did the pandemic expose the weakness in the supply chain, and are we better prepared?
Reggie, the first, it challenged our inertia. Everything was going smooth. Everybody was relaxed. We were not ready to take the next step of innovation or do something different. It challenged us, and it exposed us that we were not forward thinking. Today, we are ready to talk forward thinking and try to put that whole thing in our mind. If situation comes, this is what we're doing. This situation which will come. I think it was a wake up call for all of us. And suddenly you realize that life may not be there. And with all of us, I'm sure one or the other way might have happened. In your family, if you have a COVID patient and, you are sitting on a dining table, eating your food, your test report comes in and it says that you're positive. You declare it to the family. The first thing happens is family goes 2 feet away from you, right? And the next thing what you see is you have to get into the room, start packing your stuff, and ready to get isolated for 10 to 14 days. That's the worst period for a human being, just to do nothing and getting isolated. I think that's what has shaken all of us, that this can happen. And it happened across with no age barrier, young and old, morbidities, no morbidities. Vaccination, some people got it even after 2 vaccinations. Right? So I think what we all have learned, that we have to be ready for the worst. And when we are ready for just imagine the men of the family gets it. The other wife or children don't know what to do, who to call, where to take hospital. There were no rooms in the hospital. Relatives were not ready to talk to you. If you had, the neighbors were not ready to talk to you. So I think it has given us a vulnerability as a human being, and which applies to our cargo too, that we now know we are vulnerable, but we are much better to fight, in my mind, to understand, but we still need to do a lot. And if you ask me beyond pandemic, we are not ready.
Mrityunjay.
Just to build on what Ms. Jani mentioned, and all these stories that we are hearing, this is a pandemic was actually very, very unprecedented, both in terms of the scale and the scope. And what we realized is that there was a need of a supply chain which is both resilient as well as agile. And if you notice, the world is actually moved from just in time to just in case supply chain, and which is now factoring in the uncertainty element into it. Also, there is technology is playing a very key role here. This is leading to a lot of digitalization of a lot of these processes that we currently follow. And yes, it is not the end. There is definite need of more collaborative, a supply chain which is more agile in nature, and we need to continue to work toward that. It is not the end. We might have, as Manoj was mentioning, we might even see a wave 3 or a wave 4. So probably we need to get ourselves prepared more better and more collaborate together with each other.
Roland, how do you look at and how do you evaluate? Is there a beyond the pandemic, or is that a kind of new reality that we just need to get used to it?
Well, it's a beyond of pandemic in a way that, as I said, the learning was there to deal with the situation nobody would have ever expected in a way like that. And we are not sure whether something similar will come again. Well, again, something we don't even think of today. God knows what. But it's a constant learning curve, I think, and then we've gone through that. And the process that has been established in many companies leads into a faster response time, and again, the next learning, something else will come up, the next challenge will come, whether this is based on a virus, or whether it's based on global warming, or whether it's based on anything, on any supply chain disruption whatsoever. I mean, we see the port congestion in the United States, the port congestion in China, and as a result of that, cargo moving by air that would have never ever moved by air before that. So there's clients willing to pay more in order to get their goods faster. And it's not just from the way the pandemic was handled. Like, we had our own, we operate a hospital at the Frankfurt airport. So, and we vaccinated our own staff. So in order to have the staff on a voluntary basis, whoever wanted to get a shot, got a shot, even the second one. So to ensure that the workforce was stable, that there was no shift going out, that we could could handle that. So it's a big picture, and we keep learning and learning and learning. I think there will be, yes, maybe we are in Germany, we are approaching wave 4 now. So, and our numbers are going up again, but the impact is not as bad because 70% are vaccinated. So they are getting sick, but they are not dying. It's a black and white picture, but it's still, the numbers will climb. So I think we will get over that whole situation, but the shipping world is not going to go back to the way it was before. People got used to ordering through the internet. They don't go to shops anymore. We see the Amazons of this world setting up warehouses, taking our staff. So the worker that is out there on the ramp day and night, summer and winter, rain and snow, now works for more money at a air-conditioned warehouse 9 to 5. So we are losing workforce. This is all over Europe, whether this is in the UK, the truck drivers, whether this is with us, the blue collar workers out on the ramp. There's challenges coming as side effects. So it will not be back to your question the way it was before. But again, new solutions lay the foundation for the next challenge. And we keep on learning that. And I don't know who said that, the next generation of workers will have to build on that foundation that we are laying now. So I think no way back to the way it was done before.
Manoj?
But to an extent, I would say, I'll give you an experience, because there's a few of the points which needs to be, I'm sure it's with everyone. When the first pandemic started off, and we had one guy from the drug control, one of the clerical staff, he got positive. So the way the message flew across the stakeholders, all across, that as if he's a wanted list guy. So that was a perception. This guy has got COVID, his age is this, his entire identification was thrown out in the WhatsApp group. So you can imagine the kind of COVID as a monster was trying to drive the whole world by showing that I'm here to survive, I'm going to kill you. I think that journey from that to now has been, like most of the, I would say 60% people would have got COVID here. Touch wood, nahi hai to achhi baat hai. I mean, that's fine. But people have come out of it. I think what he mentioned, Ronald, is the whole logistic process has changed, and it won't be the same way. If you see the investments done on the IT investments by be it the airline or the airport or any supply chain, it's not more than 4.5% to 5%. I think that's where the success story of these integrators are, that they've invested a lot on that. Why? And this all success stories of these integrators is coming in the shape during the pandemic. The integration and the information flow and track and trace has really been a big success. So I would say the one of the biggest learning and the weak, I would say, if there is no weakness being defined, the process is not defined, how do you term it as a weakness? So that process needs to be defined, it is not there. So it was unprecedented. And now with that, we have some defined process which we have laid down, everyone together, be it the shipper, be it the handlers or airlines or airports or the forwarders. But yes, we are all working on that channel. Actually, if anyone is moving out of that channel, we are going to really, the entire process is going to go up. So the success story, I would say, or the weakness, we've identified all that. But going forward, what we need to do is spend money on integrations, be it on the IT or people. But that's where the learning experiences. But yes, one thing I would try to say that pre-COVID volumes, we have come back. Our volumes and capacities have come back. The belly capacity is moving again. Bubble flights have enhanced. Plus, there is an announcement the day before yesterday by Government of India. From December, they're going to start the scheduled flight. So they will be focusing on region-wise. Not all the region or the airports are going to start off. Be it maybe UAE going to start off, UK is going to start. So it's a good info and good thing, breather for all of us. We're creating more capacity. Of course, I initially mentioned about the freight. Our air cargo industry survives on a niche product, but also we need to see that we also compete the other products also and bring in more of the goods of different categories into air. And that's where this can only happen when integrators, the big charter companies and big scheduled airlines, non-scheduled airlines. I think it's all about the product mix. Now you see most of the charter companies all across the world shifted to China because they were getting maximum yield. And there were the customers, our shippers, and all these faced a challenge there because the belly capacity went down. And this is a learning experience, learning lesson for all of us. How do we create capacity? So sometimes FedEx came as a rescue, sometimes UPS came as a rescue, some Emirates came as a rescue, Turkish came in, but is it more than enough? And that's where the learning, and then based on that requirement, and there's a huge surge of volumes. And as an airport, are we get over the capacity? Are we working on that D-3 or D-4 acceptance? There are D-8 cutoff or D-4, but we accepted D-3 also to an exigencies. So I think those complex and the contingency strategy should also be there. And of course, we had to understand from all process flow that here we are here to serve. And I think it's all about training and development also. That we've seen that, how do we really handle the goods during this pandemic? Because earlier what we used to be, we were very not complacent, but we had a standard procedure. Your ops manual is there, your standard SOP is there, we're processing it. But those things have changed with this pandemic. We have added the flavor into it. And mixing with that, I think we need to be very, very focused on this, that we still have to be focused on safety, and that safety is the most important. Safety is taken care of, our business is there.
But one thing I think that was beneficial for this part of the industry here is something that the integrators have done over the last years. It's track and trace, it was mentioned before, and it's like the client wants to know, where is my goods, when is it going to reach at the destination, is it stuck somewhere, and yes, why, all that. I think there was a big gap between general cargo and of belly cargo of passenger airlines versus the big integrators that have everything in their own hands. So I think the required track and trace and proof of non-temperature excursions kind of fast forward the technology of that now the general cargo airlines are using. To you, I don't want to say competitive disadvantage, but of course picking up in speed. So I think this is something where the entire industry, and especially the pharmaceutical industry, without the pandemic, as ironic as it might sound, it would not have developed that fast. So that is like the forwarders wouldn't have installed cool cells in their warehouses. They said, oh yeah, that's fine, it's cool in the winter, then it's 2 to 8. It's cool in the springtime, it's good for 2 to 8, and there's some small time windows, then we have to worry, putting some cover blankets on there or some environtainers. But this, I think this is one huge benefit that came out of that.
So I'll just give an example of one. FedEx had during the peak pandemic, the first April or May, I would say May, and the shipment started moving more. Pharma was moving always. They had almost around 110 tons of cargo backlog and 60 tons of fresh cargo also, all related to pharma. And their team mentioned about we don't have staff, we have got only one ops staff, and rest all are working from digitally on phone and coordinating. And the challenge was for CAC also that, how do I accept that the shipment 110 needs to move out? I think that's where we had to collaborate together. What could be the best options? Not discouraging the shipper, because he had a commitment at the overseas, and it was all related to the pharmaceutical stuff. So we were very focused on how do we really drive that. So 180 tons went smooth, but yes, there was a well planned between FedEx, CAC, and Mile. How do we stage the cargo? How we move the cargo? And these are one of the case studies where, lesson to learn, in case of exigency, and that, as you mentioned, 7 freighter volume of fuel storage position, that really helped. So that's where all thought process of such kind of surge of cargo comes in, or a pre-acceptance of goods can come at the airport. That what Mumbai airport gave a solution, and really that really worked well. And they had 4 charters coming and moving all the shipments out.
How did you realign your relationship with customers when, of course, as I said, capacity was very constrained, demand was high, pharmaceutical, perishables, electronic, these were the goods that were getting moved. What kind of realignment did you do to make sure that the business has to go as usual or as unusual?
So Reggie, I heard things about, has the period ended, and, are we now tuning our capacities and demand to what is required for tomorrow? So firstly, the answer is no. So I would just like to add something here to that point, because, what happens in the entire, in the total cargo space, more than 80% moves by ocean, right, around the world. So what happens on land and in air is actually dependent on what's happening in the ocean. And if you look at, the disruptions that were caused around the world, the ocean capacities are not getting reset. So if there is a third wave, fourth wave, fifth wave, or not there, you are looking at least a couple of years of ocean getting set as to carry the way they used to carry. The turnaround of a vessel probably from east to west and back into the east was, say, 45 to 50 days, has gone to almost 100 days. So there's a big mismatch between that. So whatever we are seeing, we heard Mr. Jani talk about an article which said, the difference between the ocean pricing and the air freight pricing has from a 12-time difference gone to a 3-time difference. So if it's 3 times, so you're obviously going to get more influx of cargo, which was not primarily carried by air and was moving by ocean coming into air. But are we ready for it? We don't have that kind of capacity in air freight to carry all of that, and which will probably, even if we put in more aircrafts, it's not going to get tuned. So if that's the same thing which is happening in ocean, they don't have enough boxes, they don't have enough ships to reset whatever disruption was caused. So there is going to be a lot of realignment, and I clearly see some kind of a sanity. And I'm not hoping that, the waves will come, but I hope no spikes come. And especially, like you said, the death rates need to remain low. So if there is no major disruption, I see at least 24 months from here where you'll see some kind of sanity between, if we can actually do some kind of predictive analysis of what is required in terms of capacity on land, in waters, and in air. Now, in terms of the customer engagement, obviously, we had to engage more with the client, because there was a complete disruption in the supply chain of all customers. So right from their stocking points to the way they move their goods, the way they procured, the way their upstream was, everything had completely changed for them. So it was very important to engage with the customers on every aspect of their business, and not just probably the chain that we were participating in. So we had to talk to them about, how they're storing their goods, how much, we spoke about JIC and JIT, and, so there was so much of realignment that was happening on the customer side, and, we have to adapt to what they are doing. And it's not just the agility and the resilience, but it's the adaptability, which was the key. And we had to, so as logistics service providers, we have to be always very, very, very adaptive. That's one thing that we have to do. So the engagement with the client has always, especially in the last 20 months, has been more in terms of getting to know more about the customer, what they are doing, what they are predicting for future, and then resetting and retuning our, setup to take care of that. So I think, and that will continue a lot over the next 24 months. We're going to see new normals post 24. I think there'll be some kind of sanity that I hope in the entire transportation fleet.
Okay, let me get the shipper back into the heart of the conversation. Ravi, when you look at, and what we heard is that I think Mrityunjay already made a comment about the visibility, track and trace, predictability, analysis, all boils down to what we call is the big data that we are talking about. There is so much of data that is collected at several points. Are we providing that insightful, actionable insights to customers? When you design your logistic and supply chain strategies along with your third-party logistics service providers, what are kind of changes that you've seen over the last 4, 5, 6 months? I think digitalization, that the digital twin, trying to create the digital twin of your supply chain. I think manufacturing, it's already happening. Is that now also happening in the supply chain design, logistic design, as you work with your logistics service providers?
Probably, Reggie, I'll broaden this a little bit, not only sticking on to the digitalization or visualization or transparency of the data. Probably we need to look at what and how we are designing our supply chains or logistics networks, given the disruption with the capacity, disruption with the airlines, disruption with the ocean shipping lines. Probably, if you don't mind, if you switch the seats, I'll have some buffer in between the, airlines and the airport
Yeah.
and the shipper, because it is going to become little controversial. Okay. Now the shippers are on my side.
I will.
I want to be safe. Reggie is a neutral person. Let him be here.
So Ravi
Check,
has
why
become
you
the
worried?
moderator.
You're signing a check. Stop signing checks.
See, I want to, bring in this statistics, which Mr. Jani and Manoj also mentioned in the keynote address, that the difference between the air and ocean is coming down, narrowing down. On the contrary, if you look at from a shipper's point of view, at least we as an organization, and I know many of the other pharmaceutical organizations, are seeing ocean freight shipments as more reliable, more secure. Apart from it, of course, in terms of the cost, it's going to be much more, cost per pallet is much more lower than what we have in the air freight. So, that's the reason I said it's going to become little controversial. Overall, as an organization, it's not only India business, I'm talking about the global business, what we have. Before pandemic, in terms of the pallets volumes, 80% of the volume used to be on ocean and 20% used to be on air. And today, while we speak, the air volume has gone up to 92%, ocean volume has gone up to 92%. So in terms of pallet volume, only 8% of the pallets are going by air. And in terms of our logistics budget, this 8% contributes to 75% of my logistics cost. So now, from a shipper point of view, I'm always eager, or we design our projects, we design our initiatives to move more into ocean freight. Yes, said that, the ocean freight costs have gone up. The difference between the air and ocean is coming down. It is narrowing. And then when Mr. Jani says that it's going to be 1x, which is more or less at par with air cargo, then basically I'm little surprised. Is the air cargo rates going to come down as equal to ocean freight rates? Then I would increase my air freight volumes. So this is we need to look at how the situation transforms. If the rates of air cargo has to come down, then the capacity has to go up multiple times. One, then ocean freight rates which have gone up have to either go down or go up, which should be equilibrial to air cargo. So when I'm talking about air cargo volumes, predominantly it is the 2 to 8 shipments, it is the temperature sensitive, or the shipments which are time sensitive. Those are the ones which we are looking at from an air cargo point of view. But as a shipper, our primary focus is to have projects, primary focus in terms of improving our planning capacities, planning visibilities to move more shipments into ocean. So that is in terms of the air and ocean. Now let's come to active and passive shipments. We do have quite a lot of active shipments globally, from Europe to APAC, or China to US, Korea to US. We do have a lot of biologics which we ship. Earlier, one active RKN container used to cost us roughly about $7,000 to $8,000. Any lane you take it as an average, and then now that has gone up to $20,000. $7,000, it has gone up to $20,000. It is more than double. And obviously, see, we cannot increase the cost of the product. There's pressure from government, there is pressure from WHO that you cannot increase the pricing. It has to be competitive. It has to be available to the patient. Now, there is only other way is look at backward processes, how we can improve it, how we can reduce the cost of the logistics and balance it. So now we even started shipping 2 to 8 products by ocean. It's very risky. We know that it is very risky at the ports. When we do the plug in and plug off, there are temperature excursions. 2 to 8 volumes are not enough to fill a 40-foot container or a 20-foot container, which is not available. So predominantly it is 40-foot containers which are there now. And if you're going to put only 4 or 5 pallets in it, for sure, because the imbalance of the temperatures, the spikes are going to come. Now we are working with our LSPs very closely to see that obviously, if the container is full with 40 pallets, then the temperature excursions are not going to be so much. But with lower volumes, how do we ensure that the temperature excursions are contained, even during the plug in and plug off times? So these are some things which we are working very closely with our LSPs. So Raji, to your point, when we are talking about digitalization or transparency, visibility of our collaboration with our LSPs. So basically it is not only before pandemic or in general, we give a shipment and then the LSP is supposed to handle it. So it's that relationship has gone beyond now. And then we are collaborating with them on projects, on initiatives to see how we can reduce cost, how we can improve on our packaging. As I mentioned already, fit for purpose. So we are evaluating each and every product, each and every lane, and then see that if we have a 228 product, do we have other alternatives other than active containers? Active containers, the cost has doubled. So do we have any other options where, end-to-end transit time, if it is 100 hours, then within 100 hours, do we have any other innovative solutions which can bring our costs down? There are passive solutions. In fact, we created a new terminology called advanced passive, which comes in between the active containers and the passive container. I'll not name the products for obvious reasons, but this categorization of advanced passive has helped us and rescued us to a great extent, where we moved a lot of our shipments from advanced or active containers to advanced passive containers. So this helped us to create more capacity. Availability of containers is better. The lane risk assessments are done. We are using a fit for purpose solution. The cost is gradually coming down on the active containers. So I think in terms of collaboration and working closely with LSPs, there's a lot to learn. The shippers, obviously we should never say that shippers knows everything, because if that is the case, then we don't need LSPs or logistics experts in the industry. Shippers, they know their processes internally better, and the LSPs and the airlines and the airport authorities and organizations like CSC, they can help us to have or work out solutions which are external to the organization.
Ravi, you are a friend.
That's what I said. I need a buffer in between.
No, Ravi, you are a friend. And I'm very concerned about you. And I'm so much concerned. I want to spend time with you.
Please.
Look at the scenario. Airline in the air cargo capacity will come gradually, but for sure. As more and more country opens, more and more tourist destination opens, we'll get that capacity. Shipping side, you're not going to get capacity. The people who have rushed there are burning the bridges because they're dismantling what you have built over a period. Today, on a shipping side, no shipping line would give you assurance when he can give you a container. Number two, they're taking you for a ride. At the last minute, they tell you, this is the shipping rate if you want to ship it. Then we'll give you priority big. And since you are very wealthy pharma guy, you may give it to him. But the grids are becoming bigger and bigger. Merck Shipping Line, and I'm naming it, it's in public domain, has made so much profit that they've not made it since their inception. And they are now investing into the air cargo and buying aeroplanes. So you'll caught by them anyway, right? Now here there are your old friends who work with you, and pharma always traditionally as a big commodity for air cargo, and in my mind, which will continue. The reason is we haven't touched biopharma yet, right? Which will need temperature, handling. My family is in shipping since 1886. And so I'm telling you from experience. The kind of kid gloves treatment which you wanted your product will need as you move. I believe there's some gelatin new packing which is coming up and which is worse than the Pfizer temperature. I can't imagine shipping can handle that. The research is going on that. So as a friend, and as I told you, we've become neighbors now instead of 30 buildings away. You start working with us. The air cargo industry. The time is going to be very, very tough in time to come. Shipping containers are not available. My company is now putting a plant to manufacture containers. and I'll make much more money than what I'll make out of CSA. Right? That's the kind of demand which is coming up there. There are virtually no containers. China is, monopolized the whole thing. They're controlling that shipment. I would suggest you to study and ask from your LSPs. Let them give a data of a blank call of shipping lines in last 20 months. You will be scared. And if that 2 to 8 shipment, and if there is a blank call, Shanghai port was closed for 18 days. No ship could go offload or load the container. You'll be dead. Here's someone who is your partner, in spite of the worst COVID time, risked their life, came at the airport, clear your product, put it in the market. Where is your insurance assurance, right? Of course, the cost, and that's why I said 1x, right? Because I'm sure airlines like Turkish, Lufthansa of the world, at D-Line, you go to Dubai airport, the aircrafts of, I believe they had some 600 aircraft, Emirates. If they start putting up those capacity, you'll see capacity. And commercial, then probably according to work. The Emirates has just bought 3 large 777 freighter yesterday. They're converting 6 of their 777 into freighter. Turkish is doing the same thing. And yesterday, the Turkish head of the cargo was saying, he said, now in our boardroom discussion, cargo discussion happened first. So that's the kind of attention you're getting from this community. And in terms of your specialization, you'll specialize product every. Can you imagine a Pfizer vaccine could have traveled by ship? Would have never.
No, Tushar bhai, see,
No, Ravi bhai,
you should look at.
No, Ravi bhai,
what is.
just 1 minute. 1 minute. Just 1 minute. I'll finish in 30 seconds. Now, if you look at future, forget now, forget previous. As you move forward, you're right, I would do same thing as what you're doing. And if I was running pharmaceutical guy, I said, can you send it by handcart? Why are you even using ship? Right? That's every manufacturer's site, how we can, and in current situation. But a time will come where the product cycle will change. See, understand, it's like we said, it's not just in time anymore now.
Yeah.
It's just in time when customer wants it. The e-commerce, your 80% farmer would go through e-commerce in time to come. Do you think through ship you will do? Imagine 1 40-foot container, which takes about 42 days to reach to US. The amount of blocking of the finance, because currently you've got finance easy available, you don't calculate that cost, would be huge cost compared to you ship it into installment, and your supply chain would be more resilient and you will be able to make more money. So with that, I'm rested with you, but I'm ready to spend time with you, a couple of hours with a blackboard and prove to you that why you should be with us.
But I want Reggie with me. I can't be alone.
Okay.
So one last comment from my side. Tushar bhai, in terms of, talking about air and ocean, probably the bottom line is fit to purpose. Every organization has different product portfolios. In fact, we are not into vaccines, so we are not impacted so much on the vaccine distribution during the pandemic time. Every organization, they have their own product portfolio. There are a lot of them into vaccines, biosimilars, biological products, where the temperature control and the sensitivity of transit time is very, very high. We are more of a generics company. We need to look at what cost the product can absorb. I think I leave it there, but for sure we'll catch up again.
Okay, let's have a quick comments from the others in the panel, if those one. Then I need to open up to the audience to take a couple of questions.
So just to take what Tushar bhai had mentioned, you mentioned about 8%. Now there is already, the ball has got rolling. He has mentioned about what the fact is and where we can, help you to move this 8% to 20% back. So I think it's a good point which you have opened up. I'm sure this whole day the talk of the town, talk of the conference would be Ravi, and I'm sure all the airlines and we all are going to really look into the seriousness of what are the things which we as an airport, as cargo handlers, as well as the airline can work together with the forwarders together, that what could be the best options. And, we'll be very serious about it, because we have seen, in fact, last 2 months, gradually the volumes have been flat for pharma as well. The volumes are there, but it's not growing. Be it the reason because of US restrictions or Europe, or, the kind of capacity issues. The capacity and demand, unless this is not balanced, there will be a issue for the next 2 years, what Yash has mentioned. But being said that, you mentioned about e-commerce. E-commerce is going to be a product of by air.
Yeah.
But we want to see that the pharma is also in the same line. And for that, there's huge investments coming. A lot of digital corridors are coming up. A lot of investment and associations are collaborating globally. The pharma company like you all also part of Pharma.eu. I think the best thing is this you won't get in the shipping line for sure, as Tushar has mentioned. So what you can make money, what you can drive together, is something you get a value added from the air. And we want to sustain. We want to really see our customer do not shift. As I mentioned in my inaugural speech as well, we don't want to see that only the niche and the time-sensitive product remains in the air. Rest all is moved into the ocean. We are very passionate about it. Be it Mumbai Airport or CSE Group, or we will be focusing on every element of our customers' need, and we can wherever need from our end. We want to be together along with shippers from you all and from the forwarders. But we will not look into your commercial aspect, but every aspect beyond that. I would say that we are part of your team. So rest be assured on that.
Sure.
Yeah, Mrityunjay?
One point I wanted to make, since we're talking about comparing air and ocean and temperature control. One important element is having the control of your consignment, and which you lose when you give it to ocean. The control is lost for quite a significant time. And you are not able to course correct in case of any exigency. Whereas with air freight, you have the visibility and you have the control, and you're able to even course correct while your shipments are in transit. You have the ability to intervene. While you put in the ocean, that ability is actually lost. Whereas with air, you have this ability while it is going into a particular storage area, you can course correct, or if you need, like you mentioned that the packaging needed to change, you could do it because it was in the land and you could intervene that. Where that element gets lost once you hand it over to the ocean.
For sure, it has got its own disadvantages when we move it for ocean. On ocean, inventory cost, then flexibility, visibility. The LSP doesn't have the control of the container when it is there at the port.
Absolutely.
We are aware about that. And we're working on multiple ways how we can mitigate that. Obviously, it is not easy because the number of partners or the people who are touching the cargo in air cargo is much more lesser and much more knowledgeable in terms of the type of product, how they need to be handled. Is completely different with what we see in the ocean freight. For sure.
Question to ask you, what percentage is global pharma on e-commerce today? Some 18 to 20% maximum.
Yeah.
I've been very, very generous. Yeah. Imagine if that goes to 80%. And that's where the world is moving. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
Any other Roland?
Yes,
Yep.
you mentioned. Go ahead. Yeah. You mentioned the rates. Of course, air freight rates are, or any pricing is a result of supply and demand. And air freight will never be able or in a position by volume, by the sheer volume, to take over ocean to a high percentage. Impossible. You need thousands and thousands and thousands of aircraft, and this is just impossible. But we saw that in other industries. The trend, whether this is automotive, and we see this when we're talking to the automotives in Pune, the sea freight. There's a certain dead capital sitting on that vessel for 20, 40, 60 days. If you free up that capital and have the turnaround faster, your productivity goes up, and so this is time to market, basically. So that is a trend that is still there. So what we are trying to do as airports, we want to facilitate that. We are very carefully, and whether this is tea leaves to read from or whether this is the crystal ball, we don't know what's going to happen if the belly capacity comes back. Belly capacity will come back. 777-300 conversions, 777, 200 conversions, 737 production lines, left, right, and center. So this is the cargo aircraft will explode over the next 4, 5, 6 years. It will take a certain portion of the sea freight, but it will take, well, as I said before, it will take e-commerce, it will take different buying behavior. It's going to be interesting, but as an airport, we can only serve the demand and try to speed up the connectivity process. That's what we can do. The driver is whoever books the cargo. It's the shipper, it's the forwarder in some cases that makes the decision on the routing, the global routing.
All means of transportation are going to stay very relevant forever. I mean, there's nothing that is going to change in terms of relevance of any means of transportation. All three of them will be relevant forever. You know, ocean freight has improved a lot. It's improved a lot, you know. So I don't really agree that, you know, in ocean freight, the visibility or the control is lost. The speed is different at which you can course correct, but you can still do it. I mean, I'm sure since 92% of your business moves by ocean, so there's a lot of times that you probably need to course correct during the movement of your goods. But so ocean freight has also improved quite a bit, and the way they are transforming their business in the last few years is tremendous, and especially last 20 months. So, you know, we spoke about the efficiencies that integrators brought to air freight and, you know, what they have brought to the business in the last 20 to 30 years. I think the way shipping lines are changing, their way of functioning, you're going to see leap-bound improvement in the way they will handle freight from here. And believe you me, e-commerce will move a lot by ocean as well. In times to come, you will see improvement in sailing times, in transit times, turnaround times at each port. So there is going to be lots of efficiency. So air freight will have to compete for its space with ocean as well. I'm more of an air freight guy, so I'm not being, I don't want to talk too much about air freight, but yes, I mean, all means of transportation will stay relevant. Cost is always going to drive the product because, like you said, you know, there has to be affordability of a certain product since you're talking about generics. So generics need to be more affordable. There'll be more regulated commodity, as we are also seeing a lot of economic nationalization around the world where, you know, the governments are wanting you to, you know, get your ingredients, your raw materials in the country, manufacture here, supply here. You know, there's a lot of borders which are being created. I mean, I somehow feel we're going back to the 16th, 17th century about protected environments. But I think there is a lot of opportunity for air cargo to gain from here as we see more different kinds of aircraft handling, making of the aircraft. The P2Cs taught us a lot, and as passenger traffic is going to make a comeback, we are going to struggle for a bit. By the time, you know, those aircrafts can also tend to carry more cargo, but there will be a little bit of a mismatch in the short run. But I think we are in for a good space. We're going to see decent amount of increase of capacity in air cargo over the next 24 months.
Not bring that capacity faster.
No, that's why I said speed.
Yeah, no, in terms of bringing capacity, the shortage of capacity is shipping today because the transit time has become 100 days, or because containers are not available. And they will not able to ramp up till 2026, where air cargo will ramp up probably by 2024.
I think it's the will. When you talked about blank sailings, it's the will. So do they want to bring their yields down faster? That's the question that
I think we need to listen to Ravi now.
The capacity is coming back. The capacity is coming back.
Ravi, just
Okay,
one point just to end up here. Maybe
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
I'm counting.
Most of the airlines have started their own cargo companies as well. So the focus is on cargo. The capacity is going to come up and you're bound to get good volume. So 8 to 20 has to be there. We are going to not leave you now. Shall we?
With it.
Are you sure? And Yash mentioned we will compete for sure. Yes, sure. I do agree with what Yash is mentioning, but we are far ahead in terms of integration, in terms of time-bound sensitive goods to be kept in. But e-commerce, I have only one fear. I just want to repeat it again. When the drive of e-commerce will keep on moving, you should not lose our hands, you know. And it's time for you all to hold our hand, and we're going to hold your hand because we want pharma to be on the top priorities. Apart from our e-commerce product, is going to sustain for long.
We open up the questions to the audience.
My name is Prakash Singh. I'm representing a company, International Shipping, G9 company. So I'm working as a vice president for Pharma. So my point is that it's an interesting discussion going on. Both modes, sea and air, are both altogether different. There is no comparison between both the shipping mode. But the point I want to make is here, like the pharma product cycle is changing from generics to biosimilar biologics. More and more, patient-centric products are being launched by the pharma company, and there is a need of our that logistic by also is getting patient-centric logistic. It is going to be in the future. Now, earlier we used to see that it is general cargo or 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. Now we see lot more these biological samples are moving on 2 to 8 degree. And there are another, precision medicine, cell and gene therapies. These are, patient-based, individual patient-based products are coming, which need a specific temperature range, which need a specific transit time. Within 12 hours, you need to move your cargo from Europe to, India. Within 24 hours, these, cell line-based product cannot survive more than that. So my point is that the future of the pharma, the way pharma products are getting innovated, the logistic industry also need to be aligned with those kind of innovation, because it is 2 to 8 degree. You need to maintain -20. You need to maintain -80 degree. And now the cell and gene therapy, which is the latest development, need to move on -196 degrees Celsius liquid nitrogen. So these products definitely cannot move by sea, and definitely it can be moved by air only. I agree also with Mr. Ravi that cost is a no problem. The kind of solution like RKN and RAP, we have the volumetric weight for a 10 kg weight, you have to pay for 750 kg, 1650 kg weight. At the same time, with gel pack based packaging, passive packaging also, it add the volumetric and gross weight is increasing. So definitely we need to innovate as a logistic service provider. Airlines also need to innovate the logistic solution which can reduce the cost, but definitely the future of pharma logistic, we cannot the air is going to play a major role into pharma. So this point I wanted to make.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is Virendra here from Algor Supply Chain. The whole topic has been now shifted between air and the fight between air and the sea. So coming back to the previous topic, like Tushar sir joined, this empathy and the sympathy. What was there? So add on that, what we as a logistic service provider, we felt during the first phase of the COVID in the month of April and May, when there was a high uncertainty in terms of whether the cargo will move or not from the airport, because there was high uncertainty, they might not get the space and the cargo need to be near to the airport. The first question that our drivers used to ask, sir, mujhe khana milega kya wahan pe? Because hotels were closed down, highway dhabas were closed down, everything. So the same question we asked to our shippers. We will pick up your ship, but will our drivers will get their food? Will they get a meal? And to our surprise, there were companies, pharmaceutical companies, who not even provided their canteen open for us drivers. Plus, they also provided meals for the future. Like if you are going, you'll be there. Might be need to stand at the airport for 2 days because we don't know we'll get the space in the flight or not. They used to pack 2 meals more for drivers. So the collaboration and the empathy which we felt was much ahead than what we anticipated from the pharmaceutical company sides.
Thank you.
Hi friends, I'm Ograsen from Cipla. First, I want to congratulate Mr. Singh to keeping the air cargo alive and available 24/7. I had seen lots of initiative wherein we are able to clear our consignment during peak COVID time. I just have one request, though I'm saying lots of integration and all the things happening to handle the cold chain 2 to 8 and everything. But I really need and request all the logistic provider, handler and everything to have a segregation in normal pharma consignment in terms of other consignment, because what we are seeing, lots of damages which are impacting our consignment. I'll just give a small example. Being a pharma, if one shipper got damaged, the entire pallet get rejected from the by the QA. So I really hope and I really look forward to handler to train their ground staff to segregate the pharma consignment with the other commodity and give a good respect, whether then the damages can go down. Thank you.
Okay, the screen says time's up. I need to take the last question from there.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Anita representing FedEx, and I promise this is a question. So my question is, some of you mentioned a lot of the capacity has gone towards China because they end up paying more. And my question is essentially to Mr. Ravi, what do you think the supply chain industry can do for you where a consumer is willing to pay more and we can attract the capacity? What of the airlines, whatever the capacity has been moved towards China, we can attract more towards out of India. So what do you think, what do you expect from the supply chain where you will be willing to pay more, whether ocean or air? That debate can be taken later.
I'm not very sure if I can answer that because it is a chicken and egg question. You know, capacity comes first or demand comes first. Even we were also very impacted in the situation where we were exporting APIs from China, and I was surprised to know my LSP comes back and then says that there are only 4 containers available, which are reefer containers, and the shipping line has put up an auction. This is the first time in my career of 25 years I'm hearing that the shipping line has put the containers on auction and you need to bid for it. And as an organization, we are not prepared for it. We have global tenders, we have global rate cards in place. And then if someone comes and says you have to bid for an online tender, I'm not prepared for it. So, but you know, in air cargo, you force us to pay.
Okay. Okay, I think this discussion you can carry.
Yeah, I'm Dimple Parekh from Lupin Limited. I handle imports and exports from here. The answer to that, Anita, is that Chinese government has done that in this crisis moment. They brought the empty containers back to the China ports. Our Indian government or stakeholders as an industry, are we ready to do that? If we can do that, I think this capacity buildup can be done. This is one of the solution. It is an expensive solution, but this imbalance of containers can be created again if you can bring back that empty containers at a cost back to the ports, major ports of India. I think that is one solution we can suggest as an industry to the freight forwarders.
I want to tell everybody here, pre-COVID, shipping line was giving you money to carry your cargo. You're not paying freight. Today, for same container, you're paying X number of times. And then that's what Ravi says, that they will auction that space, right? So its dynamics have changed. I'm not blaming shipping line. They've lost a lot of money over the year. So it's a demand and supply. And but again, I'm telling you, it's the air cargo which will prevail and will bring more resilient supply chain for pharma. I'm quite convinced.
Okay, times have changed, the realities are different, so we need to learn with the reality. That brings me to the end of this conversation. I'd like to thank Ravi, Mr. Jani, Mrityunjay, Roland, Manoj, and Yesh, and the wonderful audience in the hall.
Of all of us. Very good customer.
Thanks. Thank you.